Money doesn't just buy things. It controls governments, starts wars, and decides who lives or dies. This isn't capitalism. This is a system trap, and you're inside it. Money wasn't always like this. For thousands of years, humans traded goods, bartered services, built communities without central banking. Then something changed. 1694, Bank of England created. First central bank. First time private institution could create money and loan it to governments. 1913, Federal Reserve established. Private banks gain control of US money supply. 2008, banks crash global economy. Get bailed out with public money. Keep all profits. The pattern. Money creation privatized. Profits privatized. Losses socialized. Today, 6 banks control $67 trillion. That's more than the GDP of every country except USA and China combined. This is the story of the greatest power transfer in human history. How money went from a tool of exchange to a weapon of control. Stay with me. Because what happened to money is the blueprint for how systems capture societies. And it's accelerating right now. Part 1. Let's start with what money was before central banking. Because the contrast matters. Pre-central banking era, before 1694, money, gold, silver coins, physical value, limited supply, creation, kings minted coins, based on actual metal reserves, lending, private individuals, merchants, small scale, debt, personal obligation, between known parties, interest rates, negotiated locally, often capped by law or church. This wasn't perfect, but money was limited by physical reality. You couldn't create gold from nothing, couldn't expand supply infinitely, couldn't print your way out of debt. How central banking changed everything. 1694, Bank of England founded revolutionary idea. Private bank loans money to government. Catches, government pays interest forever. Money supply, bank creates it out of nothing. This is crucial. Bank doesn't lend existing money, creates new money through loans. The mechanism, government needs £1 million for war. Bank of England creates £1 million, loans it to government at 8% interest. Government owes £1.08 million extra. £80,000 doesn't exist yet. Government must borrow more to pay interest. Debt grows forever. This is the trap. Debt that can never be fully repaid. 1694 to 1750. The system spreads. Other nations copy England's model. Central banks established. Across Europe, all follow same pattern. Private creation. Public debt, 1776. American Revolution, partly about money control. British demanded colonies use Bank of England system. Colonies wanted to issue own currency. Benjamin Franklin later wrote. The refusal of King George to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, freed from manipulation by English bankers, was probably the prime cause of the Revolution. 1791. First Bank of United States. Alexander Hamilton pushes for American Central Bank. Thomas Jefferson opposes. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Hamilton wins. First central bank established. 1811. Bank charter expires. Congress refuses renewal. 5 years without central bank. Economy functions fine. 1816. Second Bank of United States created after War of 1812. Same system. Same debt trap. 1832. Andrew Jackson kills the bank. Campaigns on kill the bank. Refuses to renew charter. Says, the bank is trying to kill me, but I will kill it. Succeeds. Bank dies. 1836. 1836 to 1913. No central bank. 77 years without Federal Reserve equivalent. US becomes world's largest economy. Industrializes rapidly. No endless government debt spiral. This period proves central banking isn't necessary for prosperity. Is it necessary for control? Now let's look at how the money system became a trap. The mechanisms are sophisticated and hidden. Mechanism 1. Fractional reserve banking, the foundation of modern money creation. How it works. You deposit $1,000 in bank keeps $100 in reserve, 10% reserve requirement. Bank loans out $900 to someone else. That person deposits $900 in their bank. That bank keeps $90. Loans out $810. Process repeats. Result. Your original $1,000 becomes $10,000 in the system. Banks created $9,000 from nothing through ledger entries. The mathematics. With 10% reserve requirement, banks can create 10x original deposit with 5% reserve requirement. Banks can create 20x with 3% reserve requirement. Common in Europe. Banks can create 33x global M2 money supply 2024. $95 trillion. Global base money, actual physical currency, $8 trillion. Difference, $87 trillion created through fractional reserve banking. That's not money backed by anything. That's debt owed to banks, with interest. But here's the evil genius. Everyone treats it as real money. You worked for created money. Pay taxes with created money. Measure worth in created money. But it's debt. And someone, somewhere, owes interest on it. Mechanism 2. The Federal Reserve System, 1913. Federal Reserve Act passed. December 23rd. Most congressmen gone for holidays. The setup presented as government institution actually. Consortium of private banks, Federal Reserve banks are privately owned. Shareholders, major commercial banks, government oversight, minimal and theoretical. The owners Federal Reserve Bank of New York, most powerful shareholders include JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank. These banks own the institution that controls US money supply. The process. Government needs money, Treasury issues, bonds, Federal Reserve buys bonds with created money. Government pays interest on bonds, Federal Reserve returns some interest to Treasury, after expenses and shareholder dividends. Net result. Government pays interest to private banks for money created from nothing. The numbers 2024. US national debt, $35 trillion. Annual interest payments, $1.1 trillion to whom? Bondholders, foreign governments, banks, institutions. For what? Money that didn't exist until borrowed. US government pays $1.1 trillion annually for privilege of using money that private banks created. That's more than defense spending. More than Medicare. For interest. Mechanism 3. Inflation, as hidden tax when money supply increases. Prices rise. This is inflation. But inflation isn't natural. It's policy. Federal Reserve target, 2% annual inflation. Sounds small. Compounds. Devastatingly. At 2% annual inflation, your money loses half its value in 35 years, in 70 years loses 75% of value, in 100 years loses 87% of value. This is by design. Federal Reserve stated goal. Stable prices with moderate inflation. Translation: constantly erode your savings, while keeping system stable enough you don't revolt. The wealth transfer. People living on savings lose purchasing power annually. People with assets, real estate, stocks, gain as prices inflate. People with debt benefit as debt becomes cheaper to repay. Banks profit from interest on inflating money supply. Inflation is wealth transfer from savers to debtors and asset holders. Who are the biggest debtors? Governments and corporations. Who are the biggest asset holders? The wealthy. Who loses? Middle class with savings accounts. The hidden mechanism. You earn $50,000 annually. Inflation, 2% officially, real inflation higher, but use official next year. Need $51,000 to maintain same purchasing power. Get 3% raise, earn $51,500. Seems like gain. Reality: gained $500 purchasing power, but moved to higher tax bracket. Pay more in taxes. Net result: lost purchasing power. Inflation plus progressive taxation equals wealth extraction without legislation. Mechanism for debt-based money. Every dollar in circulation is loaned into existence. Think about that. Every dollar is someone's debt, owed to a bank, with interest. The impossibility. Total money supply, $100 total debt owed, $110 100 principal plus 10 interest. Problem. Extra $10 doesn't exist. Solution. Borrow more money to pay interest. New problem. New debt creates new interest. Result. Perpetual expansion or collapse. This system requires infinite growth. Can never reach equilibrium. The options: keep borrowing forever, current path. Default and restart, economic collapse, inflate away debt, destroy currency value. All paths lead to crisis. Question isn't if, but when. Real example: student loans. US student loan debt 2024, $1.7 trillion. Average interest rate, 5%. Annual interest payments, $85 billion. To whom? Federal government and private lenders. For what? Education that used to be affordable. But here's the trap. Can't discharge in bankruptcy. Follows you forever. Students pay interest for decades on money that was created when they signed the loan. They work, pay taxes, service debt, all their productive years, for an education that should have cost far less. In a system where money is free to create. This is the system trap. Debt money controlling human lives. The human cost is catastrophic. Let's look at the impact, because it's not just economic, it's existential. The 2008 financial crisis, the story you were told. Subprime mortgages, risky loans, market crash. The real story. Banks created money recklessly, gambled with it, lost, made taxpayers cover losses. What actually happened? 1999 to 2007. Banks exploit fractional reserve banking. Create money through mortgages, bundle mortgages into securities, sell securities to investors, use proceeds to create more mortgages. Repeat until system overloaded, money supply explodes. Housing prices skyrocket. Everyone believes it's real wealth. 2007. System collapses. Mortgages default, securities worthless. Banks facing bankruptcy. The response: US Treasury and Federal Reserve. $700 billion bailout TARP. But that's just official number. Federal Reserve secret loans to banks revealed 2011, $16 trillion. Let that sink in. $16 trillion. Created and loaned to banks. At near zero interest rates. Some at 0.01%. The beneficiaries: Citigroup, $2.5 trillion, Morgan Stanley, $2.04 trillion, Merrill Lynch, $1.9 trillion, Bank of America, $1.3 trillion, Barclays UK, $868 billion, Bear Stearns, $853 billion, total loans, $16 trillion to save banks that created crisis. Meanwhile, homeowners, 10 million foreclosures, families evicted, life savings destroyed. Federal assistance to homeowners, $70 billion. Compare, $16 trillion to banks, $70 billion to people. Banks received 228x more assistance than the people they bankrupted. The cost: global GDP lost 2008 to 2010, $15 trillion. Jobs lost, 37 million globally. Retirement savings lost, 30% average. For context, this was entirely preventable. Glass-Steagall Act, 1933, prevented such crises. 1999. Glass-Steagall repealed. Banks lobby successfully. 2008. Exactly the crisis Glass-Steagall was designed to prevent. The punishment: banks prosecuted, 0. Bankers jailed, 1. One mid-level banker. Out of thousands responsible, fines paid by banks, $243 billion. Sounds large. But bank profits, 2010 to 2020, $1.5 trillion. They paid 16% of one decade's profits for destroying global economy. And where did fine money come from? Shareholder funds. Executives kept bonuses. The 2020 COVID response history repeated. Faster, larger. March 2020, economy shuts down. Federal Reserve response: print money. How much? $4.9 trillion. In 6 months. That's 23% of entire money supply. Created in half a year. The distribution: corporations, $4.2 trillion loan trust loans. Asset purchases: corporate bond buying individuals, $850 billion stimulus checks. Unemployment: small businesses, $669 billion PPP loans again. Corporations received 5x more than people. The results: stock market hit all-time highs, while unemployment at 15%. Billionaire wealth increased $1.8 trillion during pandemic. Working class wealth decreased. How? Money printing inflated asset prices. Rich own assets, poor don't. Federal Reserve literally transferred $1.8 trillion to billionaires through money creation. The inflation consequence: 2020, money supply explodes. 2021 to 2024, inflation surges to 9% official. Real inflation higher. Groceries cost 30% more. Rent up 40%. Gas doubled. Federal Reserve response: unexpected inflation. Unexpected. They created $5 trillion. What did they think would happen? The current crisis, 2024. US national debt, $35 trillion. Annual interest, $1.1 trillion. For perspective, entire US tax revenue, $4.9 trillion. Interest payments, 22% of tax revenue. At current trajectory, interest payments will exceed defense spending by 2028, will exceed Medicare by 2031, will consume 50% of tax revenue by 2040. This is unsustainable. Everyone knows it. Nobody stops it. Why? Because stopping requires no more debt, no more money creation, no more bailouts, system reset. And reset means pain, losses, crisis. So they keep going until it's impossible to continue. Let's look at specific examples of system trap in action. Real cases. Documented. Case 1. Greece 2009-2015. Greece joins Euro 2001. Adopts European Central Bank control. Gives up own currency. Can no longer create money. 2008 crisis. Greece reveals deficit higher than reported. European Central Bank response. Austerity. Requirements cut government spending. 30% raise. Taxes sell public assets. Reduce pensions 40%. Why? To repay loans to European banks. The human cost. Unemployment. 27% youth unemployment. 58% GDP decline. 25% suicides. Increased 40%. Healthcare. Cut 40%. Hospitals running out of supplies. Meanwhile, banks recapitalized. Bonuses paid. Greek people suffered to protect bank balance sheets. The mechanism. Greece couldn't print money to pay debts. Didn't control currency. Had to borrow from Troika, ECB, IMF, EU, at high interest. To pay back old loans. While economy contracted, debt increased from 120% of GDP to 180%. Austerity made debt worse. Not better. But banks got paid. That was the goal. Case 2. Argentina 2001. Argentina pegs peso, $2. Gives up monetary control. 1990s. Economy grows on foreign loans, 1998. Brazil devalues currency. Argentina's exports become expensive. 2001. Debt crisis. Can't pay. Can't devalue pegged $2. The collapse. Banks frozen. People can't withdraw savings. Riots. President resigns. Economic collapse. Unemployment, 25%. Poverty, 50%. The recovery, 2002. Argentina defaults, abandons dollar peg, creates own money again. Devalues peso, economy recovers. 8% annual growth, 2003 to 2011. Lesson. Controlling your money supply matters more than international approval. Case 3. Iceland versus Ireland 2008. Both countries face banking crisis 2008. Respond differently. Iceland. Lets banks fail arrests. Bankers 29 jailed, writes off household debt. Creates own money for recovery result. Economy recovers by 2012. Strong growth since Ireland. Bails out banks, completely no bankers. Prosecuted citizens pay through austerity. Follows ECB orders result. Decade of stagnation. Emigration surge. Youth unemployment crisis. Same crisis. Different responses. Opposite outcomes. Iceland chose people over banks. Thrived. Ireland chose banks over people. Suffered. Case 4. The Cantillon effect. Richard Cantillon 1730s identified. New money doesn't distribute evenly. Those closest to money creation benefit most. Modern example. Federal Reserve creates $1 trillion. Who gets it first? Banks through reserves. Loans corporations through bond purchases. Wealthy through asset inflation. Who gets it last? Small businesses. Workers through wages. Savers through inflation. By the time new money reaches workers, prices already inflated. Net result. Wealth transfer from poor to rich, through money creation. This is documented. Measurable. Intentional. Federal Reserve policies systematically benefit wealthy at expense of poor. The total trap. Combining all mechanisms. Global debt. 2024. $315 trillion. Global GDP. $105 trillion. Debt is 3x annual global economic output. Impossible to repay. Even theoretically. Interest on global debt. $6 trillion annually. That's 6% of global GDP. Just for interest, and it grows. Every year. Compounding. So what did money system create? The world we live in. The permanent debt economy. Nations can't escape. USA. $35 trillion in debt. Growing 1 trillion every 100 days. Japan. $10 trillion. 264% of GDP. China. $50 trillion official. Real number likely higher. EU combined. $14 trillion. No country can repay or borrow more to service existing debt. System requires infinite growth. On finite planet. The wealth concentration. 1980. Top 1% owned 20% of wealth. 2024. Top 1% owns 45% of wealth. Change caused by money creation benefiting asset owners. Bottom 50%. 1980. Owned 4% of wealth. 2024. Owns 1% of wealth. While money supply tripled, wealth concentrated further. Not because of work, because of system design. The corporate control. Largest corporations now bigger than most nations. Apple market cap, $3.4 trillion. Larger than France's GDP. Microsoft, $3.1 trillion. Larger than UK's GDP. Saudi Aramco, $2.1 trillion. Larger than Italy's GDP. These corporations pay minimal taxes. Offshore structures. Receive subsidies. Billions get bailouts. When failing, write their own regulations. Lobbying, all powered by cheap money from central banks. When Federal Reserve keeps interest near zero, corporations borrow cheap. Buy back stock, inflate values. The political capture. Money system enables political control. U.S. campaign financing 2020, $14 billion. Top donors. Financial industry. Result. Financial regulations written by banks. Example. Dodd-Frank Act 2010, supposed to regulate banks after 2008, has 848 pages. Requires 398 additional regulations, written largely by banking industry lobbyists. Result. More complex regulations favor large banks with compliance departments. Hurt small banks. Consolidation. 5 banks now control 70% of U.S. banking assets. Regulations meant to prevent too big to fail, made banks bigger. The Global Control, International Monetary Fund and World Bank, founded 1944. Supposed to help nations develop. Reality. Loan money with conditions, structural adjustment programs. Conditions require privatized public assets, cut social spending, open markets to foreign corporations. Prioritize debt repayment. 177 nations in IMF system. Most impermanent debt. Creating money for development. No. Borrowing foreign currency at interest. Yes. The coming crisis. Mathematics don't work. Global debt growing faster than global GDP. Interest payments consuming larger share of production. Can't continue indefinitely. 3 possibilities. Option 1. Hyperinflation. Print enough money to pay debts. Currency collapses. Savings destroyed. Happened. Germany, 1923. Zimbabwe, 2008. Venezuela, 2016. Option 2. Deflationary collapse. Stop printing. Let debts default. Banking system fails. Depression happened. 1929 to 1939. Option 3. Reset jubilee. Cancel debts. Start over. Happened historically. Never modern era. All options. Painful. Current path guaranteed to reach one. So here's the truth about the money system. It's the greatest trap ever built. Not designed to create prosperity. Designed to extract wealth. Through debt creation, inflation, and mathematical impossibility. The system created $315 trillion in debt, for $105 trillion in annual output. The interest alone is unpayable by design, through fractional reserve banking, central bank control, and debt-based money. The wealth concentrated in fewer hands, funded corporate dominance, captured governments, while billions struggle, while savings erode, while crisis approaches. This isn't capitalism. Capitalism requires fair exchange, sound money, real value. This is financial feudalism, debt serfdom, systemic extraction, and it's accelerating. Money printing increased 10x since 2008, debt growing faster, wealth concentrating more, system becoming more fragile. The people who created this know it's unsustainable. They don't care. They'll be fine. They own the assets. You own debt, or work for created money, or save in eroding currency. And every year, the trap tightens. What do you think? Can this system be fixed? Should it be reset? Drop your thoughts. Because right now, your entire life is denominated in debt-based money. Your salary, created through someone's loan. Your savings, eroding through designed inflation. Your taxes, paying interest on government debt to private banks. Your work, servicing a system that benefits those who create money. You're not free. You're a debt serf, paying tribute to money masters. And the crisis is coming. 2008 was a warning. 2020 accelerated it. Next crisis will be bigger. Because debt is bigger. Money printing is bigger. System more fragile. And when it comes, the same pattern will repeat. Banks get bailed out. You get austerity. They keep profits. You pay losses. They create money. You service debt. The system trap isn't a conspiracy. It's documented, historical, mathematical. It's how money became the ruling power. How debt became control mechanism. How banking became government. 1694. Bank of England created system. 1913. Federal Reserve perfected it. 2008. Proved it's rigged. 2024, system approaching breaking point. The question isn't whether it will break. It's whether we'll build something different afterward, or whether the same people will just reset and continue extracting. Because money doesn't rule the world by accident. It rules because that's what the system was designed to do. Create money, loan at interest, ensure debt exceeds supply, require infinite growth, and extract wealth from everyone who participates. You're in the trap. We're all in the trap. The only question, do we stay, or do we break free? The system won't fix itself. Those who profit won't stop. Change requires understanding first. You understand now. What you do with that understanding, that's up to you. But know this, the money that rules your life was created from nothing, by private banks, for their profit. Every dollar of debt, every interest payment, every inflation erosion, designed, intended, systematic. That's the system trap. That's how money came to rule the world. And it's tightening every day.